I'm going to introduce Micheline. Micheline Devaurs has been passionate about establishing a tap room here in Los Alamos, somewhere in the county, for a long time, and has been working on it from every angle that a professional business person needs to work on it at the same time working full-time at the lab. So I admire her tremendously. We had a successful crowdfunding campaign this fall, and I think she'll speak a little bit to that, but really more to the point of craft brewing and local tap rooms. So.
Thanks, Katie. So good morning. What I'd like to do this morning, as Katie said, is I'm with the Los Alamos Beer Co-op. I'd also like to introduce Steve Watts, who's with the Food Co-op. It's also been instrumental in moving us forward, and Amy Engel. Co-ops are kind of a team effort, and you'll see that as we go forward in this. But what I'd like to do with this time is start and give you a national context of the economic impact that craft brewing is having on small communities, and the emphasis on local. So what I've done here is we showed this movie 2 weeks ago as a benefit at the Real Deal Theater, and I've pulled clips, thanks to my husband's help this past weekend, of sections that I thought were particularly relevant. Takes about 10 minutes, so that'll give you national context for what we're doing and why we're trying to do this here in Los Alamos. Then we'll move to what is the marketing data for Los Alamos that we have, and then we'll move to where's the beer co-op at and where are we trying to go, and a little bit on co-ops. Mark is also from ZIA, and we'll talk about a Keep It co-op effort that's trying to merge all the co-ops in our town.
The consumer wants choice, the consumer wants diversity, and most importantly, the consumer wants quality. And American craft brewers deliver that every day. The landscape of the beer industry has changed dramatically. We've gone from 35 small breweries or 40 small breweries to 1,800. At the Brewers Association, we have on our books over 700 companies that are planning to open breweries.
It's been amazing that we now have hundreds of jobs solely because of the change that allows more local breweries. The great thing is, as a mayor, we're getting new applications literally every week for new breweries, for pubs, for new things that are connected to that. You can either go down to the liquor store and spend some money that goes to some corporate behemoth somewhere else, or you can come to a tap room, employ that guy you can point to and see and get to know, and have something that, by the way, tastes probably a whole lot better. Cities right now, I think, have a sameness to them. Chain stores, same old, you go from city to city. What's great about what's happening now is that if you have a lot of local beer, a lot of local food, local art, local music, you can be one of a kind. We really want to be a cutting edge place, a one of a kind place that's really about saying, come here, see something, experience something totally different, have a great time doing it, and by the way, every dollar you spend goes back into the local market.
Full supports local, bottom line. It's expected by the consumer in Asheville for the ingredients, for the beers, for everything involved to be local. We've adopted the old Belgian style of brewing, which is be the best at where you're at. The best beer, the best customer service, the best collaborations with local businesses that we possibly can within a tiny radius, 30 miles.
Ugly growth to me is the proliferation of strip malls and national chains that pay $6.50, $7.50, $8 an hour and do not add anything from a beauty standpoint, from an architecture standpoint, where nationally mom and pop businesses are falling by the wayside in droves, and that in Asheville the reverse effect is happening. The chains just aren't finding the support here. People are going out of their way to go to the local steak place rather than the Outback or would rather buy a pizza from a local family than to support Domino's or Papa John's.
We try to source all our ingredients within 100 miles of Asheville. I have a network of local farmers, local foragers that I work with to create the farm-to-table cuisine that we have here. It's helping farmers kind of get out in the mainstream. It's helping restaurants kind of give back to their community, and it just tastes better. We try to serve as many local beers as possible. There's a symbiotic relationship between the two. You know, we're all small business owners. We're all passionate about our community, and we all want to see our community grow in the right way. And craft beer is the underlying fundamental energy of all that.
I really think a lot of folks who are in craft businesses kind of get the idea of what craft means in economic terms. When you see money turning over 6, 8, 10, 12 times in the community versus once, it could be a lot more money and do a lot more good, and everybody's going to come out better.
In the past 6 months, we've seen Sierra Nevada, New Belgium, Oscar Blues all commit to opening East Coast brewery and distributorships here in Asheville. That's a big deal. I'm sure they can easily outmarket anybody here in town and push the little guys out. But they know it's the little guys that make the city and make the community what it is. And that's why they're here, because they were that little guy at one point too.
That one's a little messed up.
Smooth transitions. The average American now lives within 10 miles of a brewery. That's a pretty remarkable statistic when you really think about it. They're entwined into the social fabric of each community. The philanthropic efforts, the sustainability focus of all of what American breweries are trying to do just really, dovetails nicely into the values that so many people in this country hold.
Currently, we're seeing growth unlike what we've ever seen in this industry ever before, both in terms of the existing breweries are growing in production, and we're also seeing a huge upwelling of new breweries coming online as well. We directly employ about 22,000 people here in California in the craft brewing industry. This is an industry that continues to hire people, and they're well-paying jobs, good steady jobs, in an industry that's growing, so they're going to be stable jobs.
I've been to a Russian River Brew Pub in downtown Santa Rosa, California. Well, I've walked down that main street, and you can't tell me that there's a more vibrant, thriving business in that community than the Russian River Brewing Company on 4th Street in Santa Rosa. It is the heart of that community.
Oops, I spelled it wrong.
So mostly it's like the park area. The east side of 35 turns into what's now a really cool, thriving kind of art district, but used to be a really, really sketchy neighborhood. It's been an interesting transformation over here on this side of town just in the past probably 8 to 10 years.
I think craft brewers in general, I really do believe this, I think nationwide, craft brewers in general are very much more a community. That we care about the success of our competitors, which sounds kind of odd in the American competitive society, but maybe it's because we as a whole are the underdog.
I performed an economic impact study on behalf of not just Texas Beer Freedom, but on behalf of the Texas Craft Brewers Guild, and what lifting restrictions on those entities could do for our state. We would be able to create almost $60 million a year of new tax revenue for the state. We could create about 9,000 new jobs. We can create about $200 million of new payrolls. And that's a conservative estimate, because that estimate is based off of beer following the trajectory that the wine industry took when they loosened the restrictions on them. But Texans consume 21 times more beer. We are very, very, very inefficient at what we do. It takes me 40 employees to produce and sell 1,100 barrels of beer. I mean, if you get those same 40 employees to Budweiser, they can produce millions of barrels of beer. But that inefficiency is what creates jobs. Those are jobs. 51% of all the jobs in breweries in this state, the state of Texas, are at small craft brewers. But only 0.7% of the beer that's consumed in the state is made by those breweries.
That's why when you see the numbers that you look at, you say, well, so if we could increase this number of small breweries, look at what happens in terms of the multiplier effect.
It's clearly a mission that we're part of trying to make the community in which we live better. What's great is having lots of other people be part of it now and have the consumers be so excited. We're just the caretakers of these brands. We're the caretakers of these breweries. The consumers own them.
Okay, there we have it. It has a few little quirks we see, but so I'm hoping that gave you some idea of, the context and the benefit. Hold on, let me get set up here. Okay, so what I wanted to do there was give you the national context, how local supports local, how there's a certain passion in the craft. There's a great interweaving story in that movie about a brewery that is starting up in Colorado and some of the issues they have. They eventually get started, but they're the classic example. It was their dream, two brothers. They threw their 401ks in, they threw all the money they had problems with water lines. Anyway, so there's a nice interwoven story, but what I tried to pick here for us here in this context were some clips that gave you that flavor of how it enhances the community, how other businesses fit in. So I hope it worked in that sense. So now what I want to do is transition, look at kind of the local market picture very briefly, and then talk a bit more about the co-op and where we're at. Okay, so our goal is to be a destination tap room. And we want to use the cooperative business model that I'll talk more about. We would be the first cooperative brewery in New Mexico, one of the first in the US. The actual only operating one right now is in, where is it at? Austin, Texas, Black Star Brewing. There are several in planning, one in Seattle, one in San Jose, some in the Midwest. So we're not alone in our effort. I think there's an interesting component in this town of craft brewing is kind of innovative. There's the lab and there's science, and gathering places are good, I think, for conversation and for the scientific community within which we live. And our goal is about 300 barrels per year. Okay, so then so the market need in our community, we have studied this. Clearly, there's a need of, the ESRI data says 5.9 businesses of this type. We had MBA students do a survey that also found that there were 2,000 people interested. So we're fairly confident that there's a need that we can fill in this effort. Okay, so now I'd like to talk about our vision and purpose, cooperatives, and why we think the time is right now to make LABC a reality, and then also give you some idea of why we think this is realistic, what kind of money we're trying to raise, and how you can be a part of it if you have an interest. Okay, so as I said before, our goal is to have a brewery and tap room in the center of town as a gathering place. We are also looking at having wine and root beer. And we want to hire, there's some confusion sometimes about this, but we want to hire a professional brewer and have quality craft beer is our goal. And also, we are working on being located in the center of town. That is our, what we'd like to do. Okay, so what is a cooperative? There are examples of co-ops in our town, several, and as I mentioned before, there's Keep It Co-op as an organization that links them together. But a cooperative is a member-owned, member-controlled business. So the members are the owners. Another important piece is the members generally provide the capital to make the business run. We also are a transparent organization. We have a board, but we have members who have input. We have an annual meeting. So think of, in our town, the co-op market, the credit unions, the Little Forest Play School are all examples of co-ops, or REI is a big national co-op. They're open, they're not private. Anyone can go there, but members get benefits. If you're a member, you get a benefit. So you get dividends back, or what do you call them? Patronage benefits, yes, thank you. Or patronage rebates on what you spend if the business is successful, as an example. The other parts of co-ops that I think are beautiful are in the 7 principles. There's an education component, an educational component. Co-ops help co-ops. As we were getting started, Steve helped us get going, bylaws, what do we have to file, how do we become a business? And the Keep It Co-op organization is now trying to more formally link the co-ops in our town and look at how can we have a joint presence at various events. One that we're looking at coming up is Skiesta at the Ski Hill March 15th. Okay, so I think that is all I'll say. Oops, wrong one. Where is escape? No, I don't want to escape. Oh, next. Okay, and co-ops also care about community, and we see community benefits in our effort. You saw some of this on the movie, right? You retain business profits within the community, you create jobs. Craft brewing isn't efficient, as was noted in one of the clips. There's the education component I mentioned, and we'll probably consider a volunteer program building on what the food co-op has done. You volunteer and you get to shop at a reduced rate, that kind of thing, and it's a benefit for both. Okay, so why now? Our coming out was at Ullrfest, September 2012. We have close to 200 members right now. We have potential opportunities to both buy equipment and have space downtown. We're in negotiations for both right now. And we've completed all the requisite data as you look at starting a business. We have a business plan. I alluded to the marketing data before. We have a 10-year financial pro forma, so we have the documentation and the numbers to give us confidence that we can do what we want to do and have a profitable business. Okay, so we need to raise $275,000 to go, so we have all the calculations in the business plan to make our vision a reality. Right now, we've launched a member loan program 2 months ago. We've raised a little over $70,000 in member loans. We have $115,000 right now. So we are on our way, but we have a ways to go. Why do we think it's realistic? Twofold, I think. The co-op market experience of raising $1 million and the experience that as you become more and more real, people invest and see, okay, you guys are going to get real. I want to be part of this. And so hopefully we hope to see a crescendo as we go on towards becoming a reality. We have done fundraising up to this point. We did a critical mash homebrew competition that got brewers from out of state. It was sanctioned, I have a little typo I noticed this morning, BJCP, Beer Judge Certification Program. So it was a sanctioned beer competition. We did a beer fiesta at the Pajarito Mountain last July. It was actually so successful we ran out of beer. But we plan to do that again. Mark August 2nd on your calendar for this year. And we've done a lot of tabling. Amy, Steve, and I and others on our board have sat at the ski hill. We've been to Chamberfest. But what we really need to do is get the word out there, educate people about our effort, and hope that they will join in and become a part of it. But we feel fairly confident that we can do that. And as Katie mentioned, we also did a crowdfunding pilot last year, at the end of last year. Okay, so what are the investment options that we have? You can be a lifetime member for $250, an annual member, which is 1 year from when we open our doors. Then we have Class B membership, what we call membership equity interests. Think of, they're kind of like stocks, but they will pay a dividend sometime in the future if and when we're successful. And then the member loan program is what we initiated 2 months ago. You must be an annual or a lifetime member to participate in the member loan program. The way it works is you loan us a minimum of $1,000 or higher amounts, and you get 3% interest if we are successful. You agree to loan us money for 4 years. We start paying back in years 5 to 10 is how the program is laid out. We have various incentives at various levels, 1,000, 2,500, 5,000. We have various incentives that go with the amount of money you loan, things from at $1,000 membership. Each time you come in for the price of a pint glass, you get an imperial pint for that price, to at 5,000 you can shadow the brewer for a day, those kinds of things. Okay, so if you're interested in getting involved, what can you do now that would help us, hopefully help you have a gathering place in town that you may want to go to at some point in the future? So we have upcoming fundraising events. The next one's a Ski Hill, March 15th. We're working right now to do a specific member loan presentation with much more detail than this one on March 23rd. So if you're not a member, you can join. And there's these various investment possibilities I went through very quickly, and there's lots more detail on that I can talk to you about individually or as a group. Pick one that works for you, or you can sign up as you leave as being interested or wanting more information or to talk to us. The other thing is, if you don't want to contribute with money, contribute, sweat equity in any form that you have, because as we go from now to becoming more real, there's a lot of work and efforts that you could participate in if you're interested. Okay, and so in closing, some of you in this room are members. Thank you. You've helped us get started and get to the point that we're at. As I said, pick the mechanism that is right for you. But it's really, I think the beauty of co-ops is really, we're all in this together, and figure out how you can contribute or want to contribute and help us make the dream a reality so we have a place to hang out in the middle of town. That's kind of what we're all about. So thank you, and I'm happy to take questions, discussion, go into more detail, whatever. Scott.
The brewmaster, where are you at in terms of recruiting the talent?
Well, so we haven't started recruiting them yet because we kind of have a schedule of what we do when. We have a draft job description. We did some preliminary feeling out, folks that went to the There was a big brew festival in Denver last fall, and we will probably look to start hiring a brewer, I'd say in a couple months, but it's a critical, we're struggling with that right now as a board, you know. There's the steps you go through.
Guessing location, equipment, staff.
Yeah, it's pretty much. And somewhere along the way, you know, general manager, because as Katie alluded to, for some of us, this is a second full-time job that you can only, you know, you can only sustain for so long. And importantly, right, a board has a certain set of expertise. And we are a board that's trying to make this thing a reality. But there's that fine line when you transition from being, you know, out of our realm of expertise, right, to needing somebody to take it forward who has that expertise. And so we're starting to talk about that and figure out where that transition is. But the brewer is a key, because you got to have good beer.
So your go, no-go is really based on your fundraising, right? I mean, your schedule of when you're going to open. You're
Right.
in negotiation for things, but it really is based on getting to a point of funding where you can engage and make it happen, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, and you also have to count on the fact that, I mean, at some point, we right now are solvent, if you will, in that we've done enough fundraising to cover our expenses of lawyer, you know, the expenses, marketing, et cetera, the movies, that we could pay everybody back. But the next step of equipment and space, signing a lease, you have to start spending that loaned money on faith that as people see that you're getting more and more real, they also are going to join and invest.
So the co-op model is really neat. I think it's great, and you know, go forth with that. However, I think Los Alamos Beer Co-op is a little cryptic to people. I think a lot of people are still confused. Is this a place where I can come and make beer, or is this a place where local people that make home brews are going to be able to make beer? I don't think they quite have gotten the message that you're looking to open a tap room that's going to be a tap room experience like you get in other areas. I just think that message hasn't happened. Your critical mash, that's a fabulous name. That is fantastic. I recommend to you, you start thinking about naming it the Critical Mash Tap Room in Los Alamos. Critical Mash Tap Room, run by the Los Alamos Beer Co-op, and start building excitement with that. That is a super exciting name. And I think people then will understand, oh, it's going to be my tap room, and I'm going to be able to go to that. Or it's Critical Mash Brewery, something that speaks the same language of the kind of experience you get all over the country in these small craft breweries. I think that would help. And I'm ready to join today. I am ready before I leave the door.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, on the name.
Thank you so much for making that point. That is right on line with hiring a brewer as one of our very important next steps. The Los Alamos Beer Co-op had always been intended to be we are doing business as this, but it's behind the scenes of our real name, which will come out. So that's on the timeline, right up there with hiring the brewer as our next step, because the second we sign a lease, the second we get equipment, we're going to need to put our brewery name on that space, and it is not the Los Alamos Beer Co-op. So yes, thank you for making that point. That is definitely something that's coming down the line, and we hope that we can make a really good decision about a name that will get people in the community excited, and also understanding that we're a brewery and we're a tap room, and we're going to be one of those places you saw in the movie where you can come and buy beer and hang out and not have the confusion that exists right now.
Great.
Where are you with location? You said you're closer, or?
Well, so we are in negotiations we've been looking at space for quite some time. We settled on a downtown location. We're in negotiations for that space, but it's very slow. Mostly because the owner, this is not his top priority, and it doesn't matter what I'm very frustrated on that, because truthfully, we met 2 months ago. I thought the end of January, we'd be signing a lease. That's where I thought I was, and it's now.
Those who don't have that experience of actually trying to run a business in town, it's always something. So.
Right, it's interesting because we looked at 3 spaces and we actually had, this space is the best located, but we have draft leases from 2 others. The 2 others were ready to sign. So it's been you're right. For me, and as Katie alluded to, I'm not a business person. Part of the reason the co-op model was attractive, right, is you get people involved and you get a community helping you with this. But the space thing is, fingers crossed right now. A little frustrating, but.
As a business owner, and really love the whole model, we look at, when we travel, my husband and I, we attend or go to tap rooms, and we think that they're super fun. It's neat to see what's going on locally. So I love that whole vision for here. So how can we, as local business owners, help educate our community to what you want to do, so they want to jump on board and understand this co-op as a realization rather than just a dream in Los Alamos, because it really could help to put Los Alamos on the map. I'm all about shaking things up here in town. That's part of what I do. So I love that. So how can we best educate the people that we come into contact with?
Well, so I think having knowledge, sending them, we have information, right? If you understand the concept, you're enthusiastic, and you spread that, that's a lot of help, right? So if you want us to tell you more so that you're comfortable doing that, let us know. I mean, I'm all about that. And we, to Linda's point, we still have this problem of who are we, what are we? We try and table where we can, but we're kind of a passionate volunteer effort. But the more help it needs a groundswell, right? So I'd love to talk to you more and get you so you can feel comfortable doing that role, push people to our website, losalmosbeer.coop. We're happy to give people materials. If local businesses want to have materials of ours that they want to hand out, all of that would be great.
I was going to say real quickly, I know that one way that business owners, local business owners, community members can really help benefit and help the process is to host informational sessions. We did a info session at the food co-op a couple weeks ago. The beer co-op raised $26,000 in what, it was 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty good rate of return.
We can't do this.
So, because you have a different group of friends and colleagues that aren't they aren't in this network necessarily, but you have access to them. You're enthusiastic, and simply hosting, one of these informational sessions, you kind of make it like a little party or whatnot. But I mean, that's the power of co-ops. That's why co-ops are resilient, is because people have an investment that's just not financial. They see they have an emotional attachment to it, but they see that there's these other benefits, and they glom onto that, and people are attracted to that. It's just like the more and more the co-op becomes concrete, like leasing a space will be huge because people say, okay, by gosh, it's going to be real. I'm going to write a check. It's just like when they broke dirt at the food co-op, big flood of money. When the steel went up, big flood of money. When they hired me, big flood of money. So, all those are very concrete, and you can help in that process to sort of reach out to your group of friends and colleagues and say, hey, look at this cool stuff that's happening. I think that would be a huge benefit.
I love that. Yeah, we need to have a conversation. It'd be great.
I just invited you to our board of directors meeting. I think there's 17 prospective investors in that group.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of questions.
First, are there licensing problems? What is involved to get a license to serve beer as a tap room?
So you apply to the state for a craft brewery license. We haven't done that yet because you need a location to get a license. The county has worked and changed the zoning constraints in the center of town, so that's no longer an issue to actually have a brewery with the equipment in town. We are not going after a full liquor license, so there is not the constraint of, right, right. And it's very affordable. It's like $2,000.
That's good news. The second question is, okay, your 275,000, that's your goal, that sets up the tap room and the brewery, gets people started. So that's a budget to operate and, well, that's what you need to get it open and operating.
Right, so we have actually in that number 6 months operating cost. We have an assumed number for renovations, $20,000, an assumed number for taproom equipment, that one's $20,000. Brewing equipment's like $90,000. So it's those kinds of costs, and 6 months operating so that we have some flexibility, right? Because some of the numbers, the renovation may go way up, you know, the numbers will change so much, but that's what's in, and we can share that with you in detail. We have the numbers. Yeah, the business plan is here somewhere.
Halfway there. And now, do you have to raise the whole amount from member loans, or if you get close, can a bank come in?
Well, so we've actually met with one of the banks in town. That wasn't too successful. The credit unions, I don't know about Zia, but I met with Del Norte, doesn't loan money. There are other avenues we're exploring. There's actually through the lab, there's something called Venture Acceleration Fund, which provides funding for technology manufacturing. We're doing that by the end of this month. There's angel investors we're exploring. So we're exploring various other funding opportunities. And I think, as Steve said before, as we get more real, right, as we get space, this and that, who knows who will come out of the woodwork in terms of big investors. I've also, so we're working, well,
as we know from
right.
the experience of the food co-op, there's a lot of people in this community who can afford to put up 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, and they will.
Right.
And so,
well, I think that, you know, we're also at a time, you know, I was telling Micheline, I said that, you know, my wife and I are going to invest in this. We just got married. We're not sure what our tax burden is going to be this year, and how that's all going to play out. We're refining a house. And so, you know, I know a lot of people are kind of waiting for that. You know, I said,
after
between April 15th and May 1st, we need to have a big fundraising push, you know. All these, so, you know, these are, you know, this is the one thing that's difficult about, you know, capitalization of a cooperative is that it does take a little bit more time because you're not going to a single entity, and but certainly you don't have the constraints of a bank loan. A bank loan has a high hurdle in which to pass, and you know, to be able to you know, access that money. Where individuals, you know, this is pretty straightforward and simple in terms of understanding the loan process. You know, I think you're paying what, 4%?
3%.
So 3% on a loan, you know, that's pretty easy to understand. It's a 10-year payback, and you know that, and I think it's just a matter of getting the word out and talking to people, and having these concrete, you know, milestones that you pass. And I think you'll start to see. I mean, you know, if you graphed our funding at the co-op, I mean, it just, you know, it just went right along with those concrete sort of milestones that we were able to pass. So, you know, I think that's the benefit of the co-op. It's also a bit of the constraint, you know.
Yeah, capitalizing from your members, as Steve said, takes longer. But there are other funding sources that we are, you know, we're exploring other funding sources, whether they're, the challenge we have, especially with kind of lab-related like Venture Acceleration Fund funding, even HD3, they have more of a technology bent than we do, but not all bad. We did HD3, didn't get any funding. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's a technology. Yeah, right. But you know, so that led to a few people who were kind of interested on their board who were interested in what we're doing. So we're getting out there in the other funding sources, whether they're successful or not. There's also one for that we're working on for 6 months of funding for the brewer before your real JTIP, which I don't, it's through the manufacturing realm. But LA Connects, which is a service in town, has been really helpful in terms of how do you move forward in some of these realms and how do you get linked with the right people. They also linked us back to the license thing with the economic development folks in Santa Fe, who will hopefully help us when we get closer to that step, kind of talk with all the right people before we send them cold paper, which we don't want to do. I mean, you know, so that it's all networked before the paper goes in.
Web has different channels. I mean, some are very focused on, technology, employment, and all.
Right.
But others, I mean, the Community Foundation is also interested in enhancing the community, making this a community where people want to come and work at the lab. That's the kind of support that, I mean, I see this as just something that makes this a much more attractive town, where the people who are working at the lab or wherever else can hang out. And we've had these successful businesses, you know, the Trinity Beverage Company, where that succeeded, the bar at the well, the brew pub is successful. But the brew pub at the LA Inn, when the LA Inn was nice and it had a nice, a nice saloon, that people want that clearly. And, really, I enjoy a beer now and then, but I'm more interested in just being part of that, a community gathering place, and that's a real thing. So I think the pitch to the lab, and we have to find the right people. If they can see value in that may be how maybe we can get some support.
Right. Well, they've helped us, the MBA interns through what's now Feynman Center, but was Tech Transfer. They did a little marketing study. It was great last summer. So we're trying. If you have more ideas, I'll talk to you offline about, because, using the lab, because I'm all about gathering place. That's kind of my passion in this too. It's a place to hang out, kind of the alcoholic Starbucks that's open at night where you can go gather.
With the tap room, okay, you'll provide the brew. Would you have cooperative relationships with the local restaurants or something to provide some food?
Right. Well, that's the exact. So the motivation to be downtown is to be near food. We don't particularly want to be in the food business. But the other, if you go to other craft breweries around, the other model is food trucks, which is possible near the location we're looking at. But my theory is if we're successful, and we have a lot of people gathering who want to eat food, the restaurants around will stay open later, there'll be more of them or something. So as you saw in the movie clips, right? It becomes kind of you hope, my dream, it becomes a kind of a movement. You get the people there, and it spurs, hopefully, other businesses, maybe another craft brewery. I mean, but that's why I kind of got into this. I have lived here for eons, and there's nowhere to gather. And I'm passionate about not people, younger people, and retaining them in this town. I mean, that's a personal passion of, why? Because they're not going to stay here if there's not, right, they're declining. They're on the decline since I lived here. I've lived here.
And, Trinity Beverage Company, they tore down the building and there was no place else. Now that gets to the issues with finding a place to lease.
Right.
In some ways, you may have to settle like the co-op, the co-op the food co-op wanted to be downtown. You just couldn't find anybody willing to make a deal until Rick Reese and company came along and said, I can build you something where you are, and that's worked out pretty well. So, and there was controversy as that was developing, whether you should open up in the small quarters and try to expand or wait till you had something pretty good. And that's a question you have to answer. But yeah, downtown, there's vacant space, damn it.
So let's let's make a pitch. Help us with the county. You know, seriously, if we as a community want development, we need to deal with what do we do about this whole space? Because when we looked at space, we looked up here, we looked at White Rock. We had a little space subcommittee that I went to every single space we looked at. I mean, it's impressive how bad it is. Now, some of the landlords are somewhat willing to work with you, but some of the space is so outdated that, you know, I mean, forget about 275, you know, pick another, you'd add, it's just huge. And so I think that at some point, personally, the county, we're going to have to grapple with that as a town if we want development, because for small business, you're not going to be able to get them in there. If you want a big business, that might be a different story because they may have the money up front, but I don't know that that's the quality of town we want. So I think as a community, we need to work on that.
Well, yeah, if there are specific remodeling issues where you get told, if you knock this wall out, you're going to have to completely rewire the whole building. I've heard such stories. Maybe you want to talk to members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and members of the council like myself. Yeah, if they're going to do remodeling or such, it has to be safe. That said, it doesn't have to be everything that some people tell me is required now. So what I'm saying is, let's talk if you run into a specific space, but you get a remodeling issue. You probably ran into these problems when looking for co-op.
No problem. Hey, you know what? I want to emphasize something too that I think hasn't been said, that people who are going to go out and spread the craft beer gospel for LA Beer Co-op is that if you get a hold of pro forma and look at it, this is a cash flow business. I mean, when you look at the amount of cash that this business can throw off, you know, you see and this is a very conservative pro forma too, and it's based on a lot of input. This MBA project that we had done last summer, these kids were, just provided really good data, and we felt very confident about it. But when you look at what this business can do in terms of producing cash, and that cash has a lot of power in terms of other economic development in the community. And I think that's important to talk about investment. It's not just investment for you. That this cash flow that's going to be derived from this business is investment in your community. And it plays into that, and that would be the story I'd have to the landlord folks who are trying to build a community where people want to live. You know, I work the angle from, I want to build a community where people see outdoor recreation as something that's a part of this community and that we embrace it. So I'm the president of the board of the Los Alamos Single Truck Association. You know, these type of things all are going to, help to coalesce that idea that, we have a livable, viable, exciting town in which to live.
Well, if there aren't any more questions, I just want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you for your engagement. I think all of this discussion makes the beer co-op stronger, and I really appreciate all the effort that's gone into it. I would also say that I think at this point you are a business person. Say that now. Thanks, Micheline.
Thank you all. I'll stick around.